Hi, welcome to this video, second video on ASP.NET MVC4 application development. So in this second video, we will be going through about web form applications. What is a web form application and what is the life cycle of a web form application? Okay, so this is my blog ID darnigrace.wordpress.com, and in this if you have any video any suggestions or feedback, you can feel free to post your suggestions or feedbacks inside my blog ID. Okay, and so we will go in this video, we will go in detail about web forms and the life cycle of a web form. So if you have not watched my previous tutorial, I strongly suggest that you watch my previous tutorial to know the difference between a web form and the MVC application. Okay, so a web form application basically goes through a different life cycle. The life cycle from the time the user sends a request to the time the actual page is being rendered as a response. Okay, there is a page life cycle that goes through in a web form application. Okay, but if you see a MVC application, the life cycle is completely different when compared to a web form application. Okay, apart from that, you also know a web form application is mainly used for RAD, okay, which is like rapid application development. Then we will go for a web form, wherein if you want to create applications for agile businesses, then you will go for MVC application. Okay, so having said that, we will see about what is a web form application. Okay, so here we will have a user. Okay, so the user is trying to send a request through the browser. Okay, and from the time the user sends a request to the time the user receives the response, okay, there is a life cycle that happens inside a page. Okay, the page actually goes through a page life cycle. So what are the steps of the page life cycle? Okay, so the first step is initialization. Okay, so this initialization process happens when the user sends a request for a page, and immediately it goes through an initialization step, wherein it will check whether the page is been loaded for the first time or it has been loaded for the second time. Okay, so once the initialization process, it decides the page whether it's coming for the first time as a request or it's second time. Then it goes for the load view state variables. Okay, load view state is if it decides that if it has confirmed that this page is not coming for the first time as a request, but it is as a second time, then it will try to take all the view state variables that has been saved previously, and then it will try to render the page using the view state variables. Okay, so after going through the load view state, if it is for the second time, then it will go through the load post data again if it is a post back. Okay, like the page is coming for the second time, then it will go for the post back data also. Okay, and then finally it will go for loading the page, wherein it will initialize the components of the page, like all the controls and then properties for the controls and so on. And then after loading the page, and then it comes for any postback events that has to be carried out. Okay, and then finally it will save the view state variables, and finally the user gets the page as a rendered page. Okay, but this process happens if the page is going through the life cycle, if the page is being rendered for the second time. But if the page is being rendered for the first time, what happens is from the initialization phase, it will go to the loading, and then it goes on. Okay, it will go to the post back event and then save the view state variables, and then it goes through the rendering page. Actually, even before the rendering the page, it also does a pre-rendering, wherein it will check whether all the components are being initialized properly and everything. all the properties for the components, IDs are everything properly being initialized and so on. Okay, so it does a preview or a pre-rendering, and then it will finally render the page to the user. Okay, so this is where the user will get the page displayed. Okay, so from the time the user sends a request through the URL, okay, in a browser, then it goes through a page lifecycle, and then the user gets the page as a rendered page as a response. Okay, now what you have to remember is it will first check whether it is for the first time or if the page is coming as a request for the second time. Okay, so if it is for the second time, then it will go for load view states and then post back events, and then it will go for the next process like loading and posting the data and everything. Okay, so this is about the life cycle of a web form application. So if I have to develop a web form application, so as I've told you in my previous tutorial, the IDE that you have to choose for developing a ASP.NET web form application will be Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio already here installed in my mm, PC. So the version of Visual Studio that I'm running is 2012. Okay, since we have the demos on MVC4, I'm trying to put it in 2012. So here what I will do is if I have to go for creating a web form application, then I will go for File, New Project, and then so you can create a new project, and then once you go for selecting file new, and then you can go for choosing the language that you want to develop. Okay, so this is all standard format of Visual Studio. Okay, so if you have been doing couple of projects on ASP.NET, then you should be able to know this. Okay, you would be knowing this. So you can choose between the languages whether you have to go for Visual Basic or Visual C Sharp, or you can go for Visual C++, F Sharp, and so on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for Visual C Sharp, and then under web you have different templates which are already there. Okay, so for this particular demo we will go for ASP.NET Web Forms application, and then I will give a name for my web form. It will give the name as my demo web form. Okay, so now you can choose a location where you want to save it. Okay, or you can leave it as it is, and then I give the name of my solution as the name of my project as well. It's the same. Okay, so just click on OK, and then you would be able to see the application created. It has a default template, okay, with all the folders and everything created for you. So it takes some time here. Hmm, there you go. So in Visual Studio, this is already a design template that I'm using here. Okay, so what I'm interested is in the Solution Explorer. We are going to see the different folders that has been created, and how when we run the application, what is the first page that is being rendered here. Okay, so this is as I've told you in my previous demo, for every ASPX page, okay, you have the extension for every HTML markup as about, say if the page is about.aspx, okay, it has a code behind also. So you can see for every page there's a code behind as well. So this is my HTML rendered coding, and then HTML coding, and this is my class files. Okay, so every page will be converted to a class file. Okay, automatically it will convert to a class file. So when the user is requesting for the particular page, okay, it will go to the class file and it will render the page load method. So the page load method is a default method, and it will run through the page load method first, and then it will go through the rest of the methods. If you want to override any of these methods, you can override them, and then you can put your own codings in those methods. Okay. So when actually my page starts is here inside my global ASX page. Okay, this controls the entire application lifecycle. Okay, so here what we have is a page lifecycle. Okay, within the page, okay, if you want to override any during any event, if you want to do something, then you can override those events there. Okay, but if you want to do some activity in a application level, okay, then what you have to do is inside the global AXCS page, you may have to go into during application start. If you want to do something, you can override it. Okay, so this is in application level and this is in page level. Okay, so when the user sends a request, it goes through the page global ASX page, and then it goes to the application start, okay, configurations, and then all the configurations file, and finally it renders your default ASPX page, which is your default.aspx, and this is my first page. Okay, so here when I run my application, the first page that has been rendered is my default.aspx page. Okay, um so as I've told you, once I run my application, once a user posts the UR request, okay, sends a request, it goes to the default ASPX page. Okay, one thing you have to remember that in a MVC, in a web form application, you do not have control over the URL. Okay, but in wherein MVC framework, okay, MVC pattern, okay, you will have full control over the URL. Okay, you can change the URL during the runtime, and you can have a full control over the URL by configuring your own routing and everything. Okay, but whereas that is not possible inside a web form application. Okay, so again it looks very similar to your normal web page development, but just that every web form application goes through a page life cycle, and every page has a HTML file as well as a code behind. Okay, the HTML page we call it as .aspx, wherein the code behind it goes with the extension as .cs. Okay, so other than that, everything looks similar. If you want to add more references, like if you want to bring in the ASP.NET framework APIs, okay, then you can add the references and call those APIs there. Okay, so where you will call it again inside your code behind. Okay, so here you will call your .NET framework APIs, and then you can code in those particular events. Okay, during a page load event or during a page end event, okay, you want to do something, okay, with the ASP.NET APIs, then you will do it here. Okay, so that's about the web form application. Okay, thank you for watching this video, and in my next video we will go in detail about what is a MVC application and how to create a MVC4 application.